Hello again, I'm Dean Carstens, and this is Dean's N-Scale Trains. I'm standing in front of my latest layout that I've been working on for, probably a year and a half, the Conejos Valley Railroad. As you can see, it's getting very close to being finished. In my last video, I started making the roads. Today, I'm going to show you how I finished all the roads. So stay tuned, and I'll show you what I did. This is the second video showing you how I built the roads for my Conejos Valley Railroad, a small 36 by 80 inch model railroad layout. In the first video, I described how I built the main roads using Woodland Scenic's paving tape to define the edges and their Smooth It product to pour the roads. In the first video, I showed you how I made the roads in the main downtown area and two side roads, one to the left to this industrial area and another to the right to two more industries. For the downtown area, you can see where I made a raised area to hold the buildings complete with sidewalks. In this second video, I will show you some additional roads, one going out of the main area across the 3 tracks, and another one across the river to the second rural area, and finally one to the engine house located on this siding. Finally, I'm going to show you how I finished all of these roads by sanding, painting, striping, and aging. I will also describe some other minor roads built to look like gravel. So stay tuned and we will proceed. In this next series of videos, I will quickly show you how I built up the remaining roads. This picture shows you the road across the 3 railroad tracks. Notice how I built up the sides with 2 or 3 layers of paving tape, and then I protected everything with a lot of masking tape. The roads were made slightly concave between the tracks. I printed out the bridge pieces on my 3D printer, but you could probably make them out of balsa wood and strip wood. Here you see the main part of the bridge put in place on the layout. Notice how I cut away the plaster cloth to get it in the correct position. Here you see the 2 side pieces for the bridge, also printed out on my 3D printer. And here you see how I defined the edges of the pavement with paving tape, protecting everything with the masking tape. And finally, here's what the 2 areas looked like when I poured the Smooth It into the molds. Here you see the paving tape defining the foundation and the road for the engine house. The engine house can be seen at the top of the photo. And here you see everything ready for the final pour with Smooth It. I've used lots of masking tape to protect the surrounding areas. And here you can see me putting in the Smooth It. As you can see, I'm pouring it right over the track, covering it all up, leaving just the rails sticking up. I've speeded up these videos by a factor of 4. Here are the tools I used to finish the plaster. First on the left is a scraper. The end of that is sharpened to a sharp point, so you can scrape off small areas of plaster. Next comes a utility knife, which can be used to straighten up edges or to clear the flanges where the railroad track crosses the roadway. Next is a flat metal plate that I can use to flatten and smooth large areas. Next to that is a sanding block with sandpaper and next to that is sandpaper. The uses of those are obvious. Finally, there's a fingernail file that I use for sanding down small areas like close to the rails. Here's a fast demonstration of how I cleaned up the edges on the area around the engine house. Note that I used a single-edge razor blade rather than the utility knife to trim the edges. Showing the large scraper in action. Now I'm using the sanding block to sand everything down. I built up the area between the engine house and the nearby tracks with road bed glued down with white glue. Then I spread ballast and glued it down with scenic cement. Here I'm checking the flange clearance after I cut the slots with a utility knife. I used apple barrel acrylic paint, granite gray, available from Amazon, to paint the concrete roads. For the asphalt roads, I mixed up some granite gray with about 25% black. Painting the asphalt roads. I used 220 grit sandpaper to lightly even out and age the paint. I drew the stripes about a 1/4 inch long at 1/4 inch intervals, as you can see from the examples here. To make the black stripes, I had a black pen with a 1/2 millimeter point from Amazon. For the white, I had an acrylic paint pen with a 0.7 millimeter point. As you can see, the black gave very nicely defined lines. The white pen tended to give blobs at the ends. Here's an example of the striping. If you're not happy with it, you can always paint over it and do it again. Here's how I weathered the roads. I took some lead out of a number 2 pencil and some 220 sandpaper and created some black dust. Then with Q-tips I started applying it very, very lightly. If you don't like the effect, you can always brush it off or paint over it. I used white chalk in a similar fashion to create white marks on the gray asphalt. I used a Woodland Scenics fine gray gravel kit to make the gravel roads. You just put down some white glue where you want the gravel and then sprinkle it lightly on the top. And then, as usual, soak it down with scenic cement. The kit came with some very fine dirt-colored material that I used to add some interest to this road. You can see it in this picture. Here you can see me finishing up the scenery in the open areas. First I put down some scenic cement, and then I added 3 kinds of Woodland Scenics fine turf. Earth colored a lot everywhere, a little bit less of yellow grass, and a very small amount of green grass. Just keep adding the different colors of colored turf, and when everything is done, soak it up with a little bit more of scenic cement. Add some light and dark clump foliage to represent trees and small bushes.